Right, well, welcome everybody. Jen Vermillion and myself, Anthony Ceja from the San Diego County Office of Education. We're developing different videos to show the impact of people's involvement in restorative justice practices. And what we want to do is build kind of a library so that you can learn from people who have actually done the work. And so we're really happy to have both Alan and Fong with us today. And they're going to we're going to ask us some questions, and then the hope is that we can all learn from their experience. So Jen, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, before we start getting started talking about your experience with restorative practices, why don't you kind of introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are, kind of what you're doing currently, and maybe a little bit about what you like to do in your very spare time off that we've discovered that you have. And just, let everyone who's listening or watching kind of get to know you a little bit before we dive into the restorative stuff you've experienced and been a part of.
Definitely. Well, Fong, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Fong, and right now I'm a student full-time. I'm also working full-time, so it's very difficult for me right now, juggling between those. I'm learning time management. I'm relearning all the things I learned from restorative practices, juggling my emotions, juggling time management. So I'm hoping to share that and what I'm experiencing right now with you guys today.
Hi, my name's Alan. I'm doing the same thing, full-time student, full-time job. We work at the same job. And like Fong said, there's a lot to juggle with those two. And it's surprising how much restorative justice or restorative practices has played a role in it at our work, where we have to manage or kind of deal with people in terms of the work that they need to do, and giving them that boost to actually do it, especially when they feel frustrated or overwhelmed. Being there for other associates or for your coworkers and helping them just kind of calm down and get back into that method of working. Restorative practices has definitely put an edge on that, or giving me an an advantage on what I'm doing there. But yeah, and my hobbies are League of Legends and video games.
Well, thanks for telling us a little bit about yourself. And I know for those listening, one of the reasons that, this is the first recorded video that we've done with people who have been involved in restorative practices. And one of the reasons that I was so excited to have you guys on, especially as the first video, is because, we got to work together when you were in high school. And it's been, I know, really neat for me to kind of see both of you grow as leaders and just, now being in college and growing into like adulthood. And that's been just a really cool experience for me. And so I know a lot of your story in terms of, what your involvement with restorative practices has looked like in the past, because I had I was fortunate to be a part of some of that. But why don't you tell everybody else just a little bit about how and when you first got involved in restorative practices and what that looked like for you on the onset?
I'll kick it off. Yeah, it started sophomore year high school, and at first the teacher brought it up as kind of just like a project, something that we're gonna look into and just see how it's affected people outside of our high school. So we did like a small group project where we had different parts, like different groups doing different parts of the project, looking into restorative practices all over the world or all over the country, just different kind. We were being introduced to it through this project as we did our own research about it. And what was it? Didn't we call it Let's Rock? Yeah. It was ROC. I forget what the acronym is, but that was the name of our project. And it was essentially like a guideline for students. I think I have a copy of it, but that was our introduction to it, just being handed this project and working with our classmates on it. And at first everyone seemed kind of, how would I say it? like they didn't really want to do it. It was like, it seemed kind of like no one really knew each other, and we were just kind of get it done. But as it went on and we actually started to implement these restorative practices that we were learning about into our own classroom, that's where a lot of growth came to our class, and we got to know each other better. We didn't mind sitting in circles as much. It all started sophomore year of high school, and it just trailed on from there. That's what I think was the beginning of our introduction to restorative practice.
Awesome. And then, Fong, do you want to add more to that?
Oh yeah, both of us are pretty similar. I mean, we took the same classes, we were in the same school, and we were in the same project as well. And at first, like, I also had the same reaction as Alan. Like, I didn't really know why we were doing it for this project. I wasn't really into this project as much. But then as time went on and I learned like what restorative practices was about, and like what we can come from it, or what we can learn from restorative practices, I started to get on board a little more with other students as well. And to be honest, like coming out of high school, I kind of miss that experiences that we had in high school, where it was kind of like a routine where our class would like sit in circles. We would just be mindful, be present, and I feel like that in and of itself had a lot of effect in me and how I think and how I grew up to be. How I grew up to be.
And how, can you talk a little bit about how your involvement with restorative practices kind of evolved over time? Because, like you're saying, you started kind of learning about this as sophomores in high school. And then I know, I was doing this work with you all the way up through, your graduation, really. And so I know that there was a lot of, you started out just kind of as learners and trying to understand what restorative practices meant and what it was about and how it looked in different contexts. And then really your role in that kind of shifted to be that of really some, students who are leading this work for other students. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that was like and what that experience was like for you?
It was definitely something we had to take on because it didn't seem like anyone else really wanted to lead it. No one, I mean, when we first started it, we were assigned different parts, and then there was one person who was public, who had to make sure everyone else had their part. So those roles that we were kind of pushed into just evolved into leading the restorative practices. We were the ones that they called on when they wanted us to, and I guess like not set an example, but be the first participants in it. As to say, like we were the ones who essentially, it felt like it, like we were the ones who kind of kicked it off, and then everyone just kind of followed on board. Like, and the more passion that we were able to show, the more passionate that everyone else got. So, being leaders in that, I mean, it's not something that we really chose to do, but it just kind of ended up happening. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad it went that way because we ended up doing. I mean, it felt like we did a good job in the sense of getting the whole class involved. And next thing you know, we're all talking in the circle and we're all having fun in the circle instead of being forced to be in the circle. It was really fun.
Yeah. And I know it's cool to see you guys also and exactly what you described, right? Kind of being these leaders for your other classmates and setting that example. And then, I know as you kind of got a little bit older and, into your junior and then senior year, even having the opportunity to be set that example for younger students who were also kind of getting trained and learning about restorative practices. And so that was really cool because, from my perspective, it seemed like that really made a difference too, right? Having like an upperclassman kind of helping to guide and kind of shepherd along these younger students who, probably were having similar experiences to you, like, why are we learning about this? And like, what does this have anything to do with, with our school but I think having you there and your excitement and passion for it, I think really did make a difference in kind of getting other people, like you said, on board. And, for the time that I was working at your school, the momentum, really continued for a very long time. And, I'm not a part of that anymore, but, hopefully is even still continuing. So really what you started, and your willingness to participate in it kind of even left a little bit of a legacy, which is a kind of a cool thing too.
And then I think, Fong, you were going to say something?
Oh, in my eyes, I think that me, Alan, and as well as our other classmates and our teachers, we were kind of like this seed that was planted in the ground, and then it sprouted all kinds of other programs and it spread to other schools, starting with us, training to become more restorative practitioners. Yeah, restorative practitioners, and then also going out to our schools, spreading the message, spreading information, getting people to learn what restorative practices really is, and doing it ourselves too in the classroom, having community building circles. And then it just led to other things where we went to other schools. We said, hey, this is us. We're doing restorative practices. We're doing community circles. And it's helped us as students in our relationships with our families, relationships with our teachers, and relationships with our peers. So in my eyes, this experience I had in high school, it was something that I don't think I could ever really explain to someone unless I could sit in a circle with them and have that experience, like have them experience what I experienced, so that they can know like what restorative practice really is and how it has affected me as a student.
Yeah. Can you guys, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, like, while you were a student, what sort of impact you saw within your school community and your classes, especially those classes that, you guys were regularly practicing this and sitting in circles together. How did, did you see any change in like the level of community that you felt, or the level of relationship building? Like, did it seem to kind of help strengthen that, or what was that like? What did that, over time, like those 3 years that work, you really kind of started and were leading, did it feel like things kind of shifted, like the culture or the community of either your school as a whole, or even those individual classes that you were, sitting in a circle and doing this work with?
And I think in the sophomore year, to describe it, the class dynamic was like there's a lot of cliques where we weren't together as a whole. We weren't cohesive. We were really spread out amongst each other. Nobody really knew each other. Nobody really talked to each other. And, as time went on and, we did a lot of community building circles. We sat in a circle. We shared our feelings, our dreams, what we were thinking of at the moment, how we were feeling. And like the more circles that we were in, the closer I felt to each of them. Because now I know, and at the beginning, we were forced to talk about how we were feeling. And for a lot of high schoolers, that's hard. But then we learned to share our experiences, share how we were feeling that day. And over time, it just became like such an amazing experience where I got to know each and every single one of them. And we got to share a lot of things that I don't think we would have shared personally outside of the circle and outside of that classroom. So to be honest, like at senior year, it was a definite change in the class dynamic for us. Everybody knew each other, everybody got closer. And then honestly, we made a lot of jokes and we laughed a lot together. So I kind of miss those days.
What about for you, Alan?
Yeah, speaking on the other spectrum of that, because in those classrooms, we were together for a long time. Mm-hmm. But I do remember at one point we were told to branch out. We were told to go to different classrooms and sit in their circles. And these classrooms they're not with each other for 3 years. They're not with each other constantly. And it's just like that one class that they're in, and they know that one kid from that one class. So them us having to join in those circles that of those students that didn't really know each other, it was much different. But I think it did make a difference the more we did it with those students, even though it didn't seem like a big difference. The small amount of time that we were there with them, you could definitely see that they were getting closer. People who didn't talk to each other before started talking to each other, and I'm sure with more time they would develop the same thing that we did in our classroom. It was different. It was a bit difficult, especially because sometimes we'd be like younger, like freshmen. I think we worked a lot with freshmen, as I think this was junior year, where we tried to branch out to those classrooms, and it was difficult at first, just trying to get them all to calm down. But as it became more of a routine, as more people started sharing, the dynamic definitely changed, and they weren't. I remember at first they would be forced to sit in a circle, but then as time went on, the circle was already there by the time we got there, and everyone was already sitting down. So definitely mainly talking about circle or community building circles, it's something that takes time, and it's something that with time helps create that community dynamic that's very beneficial for students.
Yeah.
It's like being the bridge, and like two people just meet in the middle of the bridge. That's how I describe it.
Yeah, and I know when I started working with you guys, I was pretty new to restorative practices as well. And so I remember, man, you guys like kicked my butt the first day that we tried to sit in circle with you too. So when you started reaching out to, other like freshman students, you're like, this is hard. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. A lot of complaints.
One of the things I was going to mention is because as I'm listening to you, it's exciting because I feel like when you just stay faithful to the process of coming together in circle, both of you have expressed, not only from yourselves, but from your peers, people who didn't talk to each other, they were separate from each other. Now they actually started to what I call humanize, meaning that rather than see the people just as a stereotype that you might have in your head about them, you begin to hear like you find commonalities, you grow in understanding, right? And even you get some feelings for them in some ways, right? Like, they have a life and they suffer and they do all this like we all do as human beings. And I just wondered if you could just talk about your own experience kind of in growing in these relationships and appreciating the human beings in connection with you, and maybe seeing some of that too around you.
To correct what I said earlier, I think we actually started junior year, because I remember our sophomore years when we first came together, and through this program, and there wasn't a lot of restorative practices going on. We were told that we're going to be in this classroom with these people for 3 years, and we were just going to have to get used to it. And so at the beginning of that sophomore year, I remember I had tensions with another classmate, and she would I remember at one point she yelled at me. I had a girlfriend at the time. They didn't like each other. There was a lot of tension in the classroom, and then during those class times, it was very tense, and like we would just hope that we wouldn't run into them or be partnered up with them, with that other person. But then as we were forced to go into these community circles at first in junior year, and we were told to kind of open up and be able to express ourselves to those people that we don't like, to that person that I had problems with, we started to see eye to eye more. They started to hear our voices, not through argument or through bad intentions, but rather through being able to make that connection with each other, have similar feelings, have similar situations. There's a lot more similarity there than we thought. Instead of just looking at the differences, the community building circles allowed us to see past that and actually build friendship. And I'm friends with that person. I know them. We're not that close, but I see them on Facebook and all that. But I'm glad to know that that's not that was cleared up, and that's no longer an issue. And definitely community building circles help a lot.
For me, I think there's a lot of instances where I can point to that would like show like how we grow together as a class. But I know this one instance, it kind of stuck with me. So without saying anything like too personal that was in the circles, I know that. So one morning in class, we were just getting into a circle. It's like routine, and I think our teacher asked how we were feeling today, like. And I remember this one guy who was really, really sad, and everyone else was, joking. And the moment it got to his turn to tell how he was say how he was feeling, it just there was like a mood change where it went from happy to really sad, and he shared some really sad news, and everyone was like, hey, I get it. You're feeling a certain type of way today, and you know what? We're just all gonna stay in silence and have this big moment of silence for you because of that. Like no one was talking. He was holding the talking piece. Everybody just like kind of like either stayed in silence or closed their eyes, and we just sat there for about 5-10 minutes for him. And it made some people cry. And I think every time I think about that, it's this really powerful moment where our class just got even closer together. For him to share that with all of us, he didn't have to share that, but it was very personal to him. And I mean, to this day, like whenever I think back to that moment, it was like a moment of silence because could really do a lot of powerful things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, you guys. And I love that story too, because it was, part of the power, like you said, was that one individual sharing their story. But a big piece of that, why it was also so powerful, was you guys all had to be a part of creating that moment, right? By just holding that space for that person. And so it wasn't just the person sharing that made it such an amazing impact, but really all of you kind of being a part of that experience together and with that person too.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
I'm like getting a little emotional.
Yeah, and you know why? I think the emotion, because even I was a little emotional listening to you, because I was thinking, wow, I have been doing this work for a long time, but I've never used that strategy to just say, hey, he shared something really personal and sad. So why don't we just sit here now and be silent and just be here for him in some ways, right? Like, some of you might pray, some of you might send him good vibes, some of you, whatever, but we're kind of just trying to be in a loving presence to support our friend. And honestly, I've never use that strategy. And now I've learned from you to say, you know what, that might be a good thing to do, because in silence like that, it really honors everybody's sort of diverse ways that they can sit and be present and send good intentions for that young man. And I think you can feel that when you're in that.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if it was our teacher that suggested it or the student who was going to go next suggested it, but it was a student. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a while back. I'm not sure who suggested the silence moment, but I know that, I remember that exact moment. We were all in a circle and we sat in silence just for him.
Wow. As I think of young people doing this in a circle and really learning skills like I'm learning right now listening to you, and I'm an older guy, but it's like young people in the circle actually learning like how do you give respect to someone who's sad, or how do you listen well to somebody, how do you support each other, how do you know what I mean? And I just wonder, like, with the skills that you've developed over those couple of years doing this, how have you seen that translate into things that you're doing now today in your own relationship, in your relationship with your families, with your peers at work, with your colleagues? How have you seen some of those skills transfer over into kind of adulthood?
I think for me, definitely, that's something I always put on my resume, that I have a certificate from NCRC that I'm a trained peer mediator. So um, they don't really call on it, but they know that it's there. They know that I can be of that help. And more recently, like, I know I had to talk to someone who recently got hired at my job, who wasn't performing very well, and he had a lot of feelings. He knows that he's not doing well, but he's trying his best. And so I had to be there and actually listen to him, because he had told me that people come tell him to do better, but they don't listen to him saying that he's trying his best. And so it to me, it felt like I was me just listening to him. It felt like it really relaxed him. He felt, how would you say, he like, his feelings were, there's a word I'm looking for.
Like
Basically,
acknowledged and
yeah,
valued?
acknowledged. There you go. His feelings felt acknowledged. This frustration that he's not doing well was acknowledged. And I was there for him. I was there to tell him, it's okay. Not everyone here does the best, and you're doing the hardest. You're working as hard as you can. So I'll be here for you. I'll help you out when you need it. I'll tell you what you can do better. I just don't think that I'm here to put you down. Don't think that I'm here to badger you about your performance. I'm here to help you. And so, to me, it felt like I was the first person to really tell him that, because others would just kind of come and tell him, do better. You got to speed up. You got to do a better job. Now I actually talk to him. I'll pass by him at work, and he'll say hi to me, and he'll tell me how he's doing, or if he's not working near me, I'll go find him and I'll see if he's doing better or if he's working harder, and he'll always tell me, I'm doing okay, or I'm trying. So it's not that he's working, that he's performing at how they want him to, but he's performing now with a better mindset, that someone cares and someone knows that I'm actually working hard. So recently, that's the one way that I can reflect on what I've been
Excellent.
doing.
Thank you. That's powerful. What about you, Fong?
For me, I think whenever I'm dealing with like people in general, either it be family or anyone at work, I always keep an open mind, where if they're not doing well, like Alan said, like, it could be they're having a bad day, it could be something else that's going on with them. You really don't know, unless they're willing to share it with you. But for me, anytime that I'm getting into an argument or a heated discussion, I would just, to me, like, taking a step back, physically and mentally, like, just disengage from the situation, and not to ignore the situation, but just disengage from it for the moment, and I think, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? Just either take a walk or just go read a book or listen to music, anything that would get you like away from the topic. And then, like, a couple minutes later, or an hour later, or a day later, it doesn't matter the time. It matters that you just take a certain period of time for yourself to, like, just calm down, reevaluate your mindset, and just think, like, are you okay to keep talking about it? Are you okay to keep discussing the topic? And are you okay in general? And then once you clear up your mind, then you can maybe think, was I feeling a certain type of way because of this or that? And then eventually you just come to, like, a conclusion, and maybe you can work something out with anyone that you're fighting with, and that's helped me a lot with my family, with my friends.
Yeah.
I know that taking that mindset where you need to just disengage from the conversation entirely and then coming back to it, it's really helped me. And it also, I think it helped the other person too, because they're also in that emotionally charged moment and they might not be thinking clearly. And then you just take a step back and then come back to talk about it.
Wow. I mean, hearing both of you, honestly, I feel like you are really actually kind of restorative human beings with the people that you're dealing with, right? Whether it be somebody who's feeling kind of bad about their work performance, or somebody who's in a conflict with you over a certain issue, and maybe you're feeling a bit harmed by some of their comments, but the skills that you've gained are life uh, kind of life success skills. I don't know how to say it, but I wanted to just to ask this: like, if you were talking to, let's say, teachers from elementary, middle, high school, any grade, what recommendation would you give them about trying to develop time for and taking that time, because it does take time to do the restorative circles in their classrooms, in whatever, wherever they are, like to help them understand that what you think is the value of it?
Personally, it definitely depends on what grade level in terms of schooling, because I know I think that we were lucky in our classroom that everyone was willing to participate. Because I remember when our class was told to branch out into different classes, there were some classes that just really didn't want to do circles. We had to cancel some circles because some teachers just they felt like their students couldn't get a grip on it, or the teacher felt like the students were taking more advantage of the circles instead of actually participating and being a part of it. And so, to me personally, I think that it would definitely start a lot younger, like towards elementary or middle school, where the adults don't come off as controlling, but rather act like educators, like people who are there to teach you instead of trying to keep you there and like punish you and stuff. Because and by the time you get to high school, you kind of develop this mindset that teachers are just parents. Teachers are just there to nag. But if teachers starting at a young age are seen as like these people who care about you, these people who have lives of their own, and these people who are willing to level with you about situations or just what you're dealing with, if they start seeing teachers more as like humans essentially and not just another parent, then it definitely has a bigger impact. And I say that our class, or we got lucky that our classroom, most of our classmates in the class didn't see the teacher, didn't see our teacher as another teacher. We were able to relate with our teacher heavily. Like the teacher, even before the community building circles, would try to connect with us in different ways to build that personal relationship with us. And being in those circles with that teacher just enhance more of that feeling towards them. So it definitely depends on the student, whether they're how they see the teachers, or that's why sometimes it's better if the students lead the circles, and sometimes the teachers might maybe not even there, because they can relate at that level with another student who's leading the circle. It's like, oh, it's not some teacher who's trying to send me homework. It's another student who wants to know how I am or how my day is going. So I think there's a trade, or there's definitely different levels to it in terms of like the age of the student. If we're talking about younger people or students in general, like I think the younger the student, the better, or the more likely it is that these community circles would work, and there's less of a feeling about it being a punishment, but rather something that they want.
That's great. Thank you, Alan. What about you, Fong?
In my opinion, I think regardless of the grade levels, it just takes a lot of patience. So I know that in our first couple of circles, nobody really said anything. And we all just thought, you know what, it's just another day, another assignment, another thing that teachers make us do. Let's just get on with it. So not everybody just said, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good today," or pass, or they didn't want to say anything. For me, it's just the teachers back in our high school. They continue the circles. It's the key. So continuing those circles, continuing even when your students are not saying anything, because then they're getting more and more comfortable being in a circle, comfortable holding a talking piece, and just being comfortable with having all the attention around them. Because I know a lot of high schoolers, middle schoolers, just students in general are uncomfortable when they're put on the spot and have everyone look around them, look at them. So that's why a lot of us develop um, that relationship with each other. The more circles we had, the more comfortable we were to just sit in a circle, talk to each other. Like it was a conversation. It wasn't even a circle at that point. It was a conversation in a circle.
Yes.
So then, like, I think the best advice that I can give to teachers or administrators who want to, I guess, plant the seed at their school is to just have patience with their students. And so these circles are not common, so a lot of students, it might be their first time getting into a circle. It might be their first time sitting in a chair and talking to their peers. And a lot of that experience we don't have at home. So in our class, I know that it was a really diverse class, students from all backgrounds, of all family backgrounds, broken families, or just personal issues, internal struggles that they're dealing with. But when we were all in a circle, everything went away. We were just having conversations with each other, getting closer, getting to know one another. And then after the circle, you have people that are going across and like starting making conversations about topics that were brought up in their circle. So all you need to do as teachers and as administrators is to have patience with your students, so that building up that bridge is not going to be done in a day, right? Building that bridge and planting that seed for it to grow, it takes several days, several weeks, maybe several months to build that road. But once you have it going, you'll see immediately, like, it doesn't stop. And I know I remember there's people in our class that asked for circles. Then when we didn't even have time for a circle in our class, but they wanted a circle. So you'll just see that amazing growth from your students, and like over time.
That is a great advice, just having that patience, and really it's okay if people are uncomfortable in the beginning and they're not really talkative, but just be patient and keep doing it, be consistent. This might be kind of like a strange question in some ways, but because I don't know if you can remember, but like you talked about like the breakthrough that happens where people start becoming comfortable with the circle, and and it starts really functioning. You even said students will ask for it themselves sometimes. But what about for you personally? Do you remember what was the breakthrough for you yourself? Because at first you both were kind of uncomfortable, but what made you really kind of go to like, man, something's good here?
For me, the breakthrough was, I guess, this one day, I had a pretty bad day, and like I had a fight with my parents. I come to school, I woke up really tired. I went to sleep late doing homework. So I'm starting the day grumpy, And I walk into the classroom, and our circles was usually held during advisory period, where you have like 45 minutes with your, I guess, like homeroom teacher, and they can do whatever they want as an activity. So at that point, Ms. I don't want to.
Okay.
Can I say
That's
her name?
all right. Yeah, you're honoring her.
Ms. Sadler asked us to get into a circle, and at that point, I really didn't feel like saying much. But then a couple people before me, they were just talking about their day, and a couple of them said, "Yeah, I'm not really feeling that good today," and they passed. and that was okay. So I thought, okay, well, let me just say something. So I said, I'm having a really bad day. And I don't know if you guys can relate, but I'm not really feeling like I want to talk today. So I kind of passed. And that was okay. Miss Adler didn't say anything. She sat in a chair, she nodded, and then we moved on to the next person. And that for me, that acknowledgement that I'm not feeling good today, I'm not going to participate as much, but I'll still listen, but I'll still say that I'll let you guys know I'm not feeling well. And that for me was just that acknowledgement from the class and from Miss Adler that my feelings were valid. Then that was a breakthrough for me. Then I felt like I could share whatever I wanted and whatever I needed for the day.
That's powerful. Powerful. Thank you. What about you, Alan?
For me, definitely, I think it was when I started thinking forward or thinking about the circles when I wasn't in the circles, when I was thinking about what I wanted to say, because I started looking forward to the circles, and I don't remember exactly what led me to be thinking about what I wanted to say, but I know that at one point I just started having fun with it. So once you start to anticipate the circle, once it really becomes a routine, and you just start to look forward to it. You're just like, oh, I wonder what the question will be, and this is what I'm going to say. Because it got to the point where like we would have a lot of fun in the circles. There'd be silly questions. We'd just we'd say like the randomest things, and it's okay. It's fun, and it's what helps build those relationships with other students. So for me, it was definitely when we were able to start having fun, and instead of just seeing it as like, oh, get in circles. No, it's like, oh, let's get in a circle. I want to say, I have something to say. So I started to think about what I wanted to say. I wanted to talk to everyone, and that's when I realized, oh wow, I really like what we're doing here. It's really fun.
It's amazing to me. What a powerful thing. I just really appreciate your answers. They're so authentic. You know what I mean? Like I could feel when you're talking, I can feel like, I don't know, just I guess the realness of it. And
picture,
We're in
I,
a circle.
yeah.
yeah. And on both of your examples were super powerful to me. So, and it makes it real. Like if somebody's listening to this, they're kind of probably going, wow, I never thought of that. Like, the beginning, it's going to be real quiet and you're going to think it's not even working. And then at some point, somebody could be having a bad day. And all of a sudden, just because that one teacher accepted and embraced you right where you were, you didn't have to be something else. You felt like valued just where you were. And that even at some point, you begin to even prepare, like you start thinking about the circle. You're not even in it, but you're like thinking, oh, I want to go there. I can't wait to talk about this.
Yes.
And so it's become an important part of your day, right?
Yeah.
And I just think, wow, how powerful if educators could really learn this and to go, okay, so if I'm going to start this, I need to know I need to be patient and kind and just accept people where they are and encourage them the whole way. And pretty soon it's going to start to evolve and the safety is going to be felt. And then all the relationships will build even through fun stuff. Right? You're not talking about big time, super big ideas or something. It's just that people are laughing and joking and having fun. And people are realizing, wow, we're just human beings having a great time together. It's like, I actually want to go to class, not because I have to go to class, but because I actually want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think because advisory was like the second, was like kind of like second period for us. We just, after the circles, we start the day like a new day, basically, when we walk out of the circle, because then everybody's talking, everybody's feeling better. But if somebody's not feeling as well, you have someone just going across and saying, hey, how are you? Like, I know what you said, and I'm here for you, like if you ever need anything. So then we started just looking forward to circles every day. Miss Sadler didn't even have to tell us, hey, get in a circle. We're already in a circle. If she didn't have a talking piece, we'd be like, oh, hey, this is a talking piece. I'll start.
Nice.
So
one of the things you were.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
eventually
Fong.
everyone. Oh, it's okay. Eventually, everybody just just know the rules. Like, hey, no talking over one another, no chit-chatting on the side, no being on our cell phones. And even I remember this one guy who really didn't want to do circles at all. He didn't ever talk. He kept passing, or he said, I'm good, and then he passed. Even he said something, and I just, like, when he said something, that was kind of like a light bulb for him, that, hey, I can say something.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that you really wouldn't see in a circle, and you really wouldn't see talk in like a large setting.
Wow. Amazing to me how, and I know we have to get going pretty soon because we have another meeting we have to get to in a few minutes, but thank you. Thank you for the richness, for even just for myself, honestly, as a somebody into this restorative practices work, to just feel so encouraged and so, I don't know, just kind of like, because of your authenticity, like, it just, honestly, it helps to restore me, it does, it really does. So thank you. And then maybe at another, who knows, maybe at another point we'll have another quick conversation, because there's so much richness in your experience. It really, so much richness, that I would even love to pursue this idea of how you said, a peer would go to some other kid that's not feeling well, that they said they weren't having a good day, and you would see that the young person would go to them rather than the teacher having to go and do that.
Yeah.
So at some point, maybe we can even just talk about that, how students begin to see themselves as important leaders, that they're part of the healing of their community. And so I really would love at some point if we could have a conversation just about that.
Definitely. Yeah, that was just about circles. There's peer mediation. There's
we have so many experiences that we can talk about.
Circles were the biggest part, but there's many more.
Yeah.
All right.
So much in, like, even Alan, what you were sharing earlier, well, actually really both of you, when you're talking about how you've been able to use this work since, that, it's not just about, you're not just being restorative when you're sitting in those circles, right? Like, even right now, you're not in high school anymore. And so you're not sitting in circles regularly, but you're taking that lens, like, Fong, what you were sharing about, like, the way that, you handle conflict, or you are perceiving other people when there is conflict going on. And so a lot of the things that were important, and the things that you had to learn and really understand about restorative practices as a student, and what you learned while you were doing those circles, has translated into, like, so much, like, bigger, like Anthony said, really, life skills, and I think, going to continue to help you to be successful. And so I just personally am just so proud of you guys, and I've loved seeing you kind of grow, like I said before, into just adulthood, and seeing, really the legacy that you've left. So thank you. I'm sure that any other students or teachers who are still benefiting from the work that you started, really, it's, you were like the founders of that as student leaders. And so you really left a wonderful thing for other students that were going to come after you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.